Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome back to Mind Your Own Biz. My name is Alicia Yervis, and I am your host. Thank you so much for being here today. Listen, I have a very juicy conversation for you today, especially if you've ever felt like you just do not fit the traditional mold of how business is supposed to be done. You know, I like to talk about that here on the podcast. And we're going to talk today about building a business your way, one that truly supports who you are, and what happens when you start listening to your energy, your body, and your intuition instead of someone else's rigid rules. And spoiler alert, that is also exactly the kind of stuff that I love talking about inside my online course. Content strategy doesn't have to suck. And in fact, the whole thing is designed to help overwhelmed solopreneurs like you build a social media content strategy that actually reflects who you are, what your audience truly needs from you, who you're talking to, and how you want to show up online without burning out or without going blank every time you try to post something on social media. So if you've been craving more ease, more clarity, and more you in your marketing, get on the waitlist for the next round of my course at aliciayervis.com/waitlist. Trust me, you'll want to be first to hear when doors open. They're going to be opening very soon, and I really can't wait to welcome you into the next round. It's a lot of fun. It includes a Facebook group. It includes live calls with me. You get personalized feedback opportunities. It's great. So hopefully you can join us. Again, get on the waitlist at aliciayervis.com/waitlist and finally have marketing that feels good. So my guest today is someone who really gets what it's like to be a business owner who does not thrive in that crummy hustle culture you've been hearing me talk about. I'm sick of talking about it. I hate it. It's never been my thing. And yeah, I'm just really, really looking forward to talking about how you can build a business and run a business that really embraces who you are, and that helps you and your business thrive. And my guest's superpower is helping you build a business that feels good and gets results without sacrificing your sanity. Michelle Sheerin is a marketing and business coach for intuitive entrepreneurs who want to grow without burning out or betraying their energy. She's a neurodivergent mom, a chronic illness warrior, and the founder of Michelle Sheerin Coaching, where she supports soul-led business owners through offers like her Soulful Business Blueprint, effortless offer expansion, and one-to-one consulting. With nearly a decade of experience in marketing, Michelle blends strategic expertise with a holistic, soul-centered approach because she believes you're a human who happens to run a business, not the other way around. Her journey into entrepreneurship began after stepping away from a traditional marketing manager role to recover from severe burnout. What started as freelance work soon blossomed into a full-time business, driven by her passion for helping others build brands that align who they really are. After following the quote-unquote sustainable growth blueprint and creating everything from group programs to self-paced courses, Michelle realized that much of what she had built didn't actually feel good to her. So she did the unthinkable. She pivoted mid-launch. That bold move led her to lean deeper into the woo, exploring astrology, meditation, breath work, and radical self-acceptance. Michelle's lived experience as a neurodivergent entrepreneur with chronic illness helped her realize that her energy isn't like everyone else's, and that's her superpower. Today, she helps others discover the same. Whether through intuitive launches, permission-filled strategy, or energetic alignment, Michelle empowers her clients to do business their way with clarity and compassion. She's honored to support entrepreneurs in creating businesses that feel like home and believes that ease, purpose, and profit can absolutely coexist. So, without further ado, I'm very excited to welcome my friend, Michelle Sheerin. So, hi, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to see your face. You were kind enough to have me on as a podcast guest back in the day when I was new to the idea of podcasting. I hadn't yet started mine, but I loved our talk and it gave me even more motivation that I needed to start my own. So, thank you for having me on. And it's awesome to have this full circle moment where now you're on. It's so good to see you.
Yes. And honestly, you are giving me permission to encourage myself to get back to that because I've wanted to start revamp that podcast idea that I originally had and just be more intentional about it.
Mhm.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, keep me posted on that.
I will.
Um, so I just talked a little bit about your story to my listeners. I gave, a little bit about your background. Remind me where you're joining us from today?
Michigan.
Michigan. Okay, cool. So before we start going into some of the specific kind of tactics and strategies and, different stories that I wanted to talk about today, could you tell us what made you move from your past career in marketing as I believe you were a marketing manager, moving into the soulful biz coach that you are now? Like, talk to us a little bit about that. I know you've been at it for a while now.
Yeah. So it has been like 4.5 years. So
Hmm.
when I first started my business, it was kind of on, not on accident, but a little bit.
Hmm.
So I had just decided I was so burnt out after COVID. I was a marketing manager for a financial institution. And I just got to the point where I was like, I cannot keep going the way that I've been operating. Like, I felt like I stepped off the merry-go-round and watched it keep spinning, and I couldn't get back on. And I was like, something
Hmm.
needs to change. So I was applying to different places. And side note, which is a very ADHD thing to do, but side note,
We're gonna have lots of side notes today, everybody.
I do not recommend starting your business this way.
Mm,
Do as I say, not as I do
there we
in
go.
this instance. So I had a couple job opportunities and none of them just really spoke to me except for the way that freelancing did. So I was freelancing social media marketing and a little bit of marketing for other people, but mostly social media because that's where a lot of small businesses are. And
Hmm.
I was like, I think that I would be very silly if I didn't just take this opportunity to make this full time. And so I just started working my way up. And yeah, again, I don't recommend this for everybody because I was very privileged in the fact that if I failed, I had other companies who, were ready to hire me. I also had a husband who, if I failed, could financially support me. And I also
Hmm.
had this marketing background where I kind of knew what I was doing because I was helping other businesses grow. So while I didn't really know what I was doing, I kind of did. So I always like
Hmm.
to say that because I don't want anyone to just quit their job and then be like, why didn't this work out for me?
Hmm.
Because it's not the smartest decision for everybody.
Hmm.
But, anyways, so I started just kind of deciding in the moment, like, trying out everything, like what really felt good. And what really stuck with me, I kind of had like a signature service that I offered, which was my strategy refresh sessions. And I just found that I loved working one on one with people. So then I did what every business coach tells you to do, which is turn your signature service into a group program and make it DIY and blah, blah, blah. So I started to do that. And I ran my course, which was called the Marketing Boot Camp. I ran that a couple times and I loved the people that I was working with. That wasn't it at all. But I just decided, like, for one, talking to big groups, it's just not like my thing. I really prefer like intimate one-on-one conversations because everybody is so different. And
Hmm.
also thinking about like coming up with this curriculum for the last launch that I did, I was expanding it from 8 weeks to 10 weeks. And I was like, this sounds so draining to me. And this is not what it should feel like when I'm in charge. Like, I kind of had to
Mm.
myself, like, I'm my own boss. I can make the rules as I go. And so, again, I don't, recommend that this is what you do, but this is how I did it. I decided that in the middle of my launch, I was going to talk to the people who had signed up on my wait list, signed up for the program, gave them their money back. And I said, I'm really sorry, I cannot move forward with this. It just doesn't feel like it's in alignment with what I really want to do. And I don't feel like I can really show up as my real authentic self and help you in this capacity. I would love to work with you one on one if it's something that you're looking for. But yeah, I just scrapped my offer and started from scratch. And a lot of business coaches will tell you, working one on one is not scalable, it's not sustainable because you're trading time for dollars, and you can't do one on one with everybody. And that's true to a point. You can't work one on one with everybody in the world, but that's not the
Hmm.
business that I want to run. I want to be very intentional with my time, I want to be very intentional with the people that I help. And, I'm not going to charge $5 for a one-on-one session, whereas somebody who does like digital downloads or something like that is able to offer something priced at $5. You have to kind
Hmm.
of be intentional about that. But um, yeah, I just decided I was going to ditch the rules and go at what I felt was really pulling at my heart, and it worked out for me. And then I turned around and helped a bunch of other business owners do the same, and not specifically in the direction that I was moving in, because again, everybody's different, but being able to kind of give them permission to act with integrity of what's, most in alignment with themselves, which is very different than what mainstream business tells you should work for you.
Hmm. Hmm. There's so much to unpack in everything you just said. The first thing that I want to do is I want to give you this Dundie that's on my desk because you deserve a Dundie Award for having the courage
Thank
to
you.
do what you just did. Because I know that like you did it because you needed to do it because it wasn't feeling right and you needed it to feel right. But I feel like so many of us just keep trying to make fetch happen
Yeah.
and just keep trying to square peg round hole things because we either we really, really want it to work out, and we're hoping that we just get over ourselves so that we feel better about it magically, or we don't want to be seen as a flake, as, untrustworthy, these different lies that we tell ourselves
Yeah.
about, the meaning that is attached to, a pivot like that in the middle of a program. Like with you, you already had people had already swiped their credit cards, they were enrolled, they were getting ready and you kind of pump the brakes and we're like, meh, record scratch, hold on. I'm going to give you your money back because I just need to do this. Talk to me a little bit about what you were feeling before you decided to officially do that. Like what was going through your head? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So honestly, one of the biggest feelings that I felt, and that I think I'm not alone, and I think a lot of business owners feel this way, was I felt so weighed down with shame and guilt. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like all these people are depending on me. And if I don't show up in this specific way, like I'm going to disappoint them, I'm going to fail. And it was a very shameful feeling and thing for me to have to do, to turn around and say, I can't do this. And I really grappled with myself for a while to make that decision. Like I kind of laughed it off in, my bio and stuff, like, oh, I just decided to pivot mid-launch, but it really was an intentional decision, and one that was not easy. But it was one that I don't regret at all. And
Mm-hmm.
it's truly like led me to loving my business, and honestly, like loving my life. I can't imagine
Oh.
if I were to keep going the way that I was going, like you said, I would be trying to peg myself, like putting myself, that sounded bad, putting myself as a round peg in a square hole.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes, exactly. And it's funny because well, first, like when you decided to do that, what was some of the feedback that you got from people who had enrolled? Like what did people think or say?
So there were a few people who were a little disappointed because they were looking forward to the community aspect, which I understand. But
Hmm.
most people were so amazed at the bravery that I had, which it feels silly even saying it like that that's a brave thing to do, but it was.
It was.
It was. And I would say that to any
It
of my
was.
clients who did that, that it was brave.
Mm,
And it gave a lot of the people kind of permission to do the same. Like, okay, I have been trying to make this work and it's not working. Like, I'm kind of going to see how you're navigating this. And, maybe I should take notes, which again, I
hmm
felt like really a little guilty about because I was like, I feel like I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, but I got there eventually.
hmm
So,
hmm I love that so much. So I had a well, first I will say that I keep hearing, I'm in a bunch of different like business groups and stuff on LinkedIn, Facebook, la la la. And stuff like this does come up once in a while where people share, that they scrapped something or they pivoted or they, changed their mind after they had, gotten people enrolled or whatever. And honestly, most of the time, the feedback and the response to it in terms of buyers or students or whatever is overwhelmingly positive and understanding and supportive. Yes, of course, there's going to be a couple people who are annoyed or, whatever. I feel like those people were never meant to be your
yeah.
people in the end anyway. And, bless and release, and we wish them well, and I understand, and here, here's your refund. Um, but yeah, what I see from people who are sharing stories like that is overwhelmingly it goes so much better than they thought. They were sweating bullets and oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But I think to your point, people really appreciate not only the bravery but the integrity, the authenticity, the oh my gosh, like she realized this wasn't the best fit, like. I'm so in for whatever she's about to build and make because she's going to be so motivated and inspired. It's going to be amazing, you know? So I love that. And I had not the same thing, but a slightly similar thing happened where I just ran my first paid workshop, and it was about ChatGPT, and it was so much fun and it went really really well and I got really good response, and I am just so pumped and excited for how it went. But it was supposed to be the month prior, and I had already had some people sign up and enroll and stuff, and unfortunately I had a family emergency I had to deal with for a little bit, and it happened like 2 days before the workshop was supposed to be, so I ended up pushing it by like 3 weeks or something. Literally, not one person said anything. Everyone was cool. Everything was fine. And then, honestly, like it gave me a little bit of a longer runway to get more people in.
Yeah.
So, it worked out. Um, but I think it's such an important story to share because I think we're so worried about people's perceptions of us. And, not only what our potential students or clients might think, but our peers, our colleagues, our parents, our friends and family. And at the end of the day, like I'm running my business to help other folks, with things that I'm good at doing, that I've learned along the way, and I want to share with them. And so I don't really care what those other folks who are not going to be my clients, really think. It's about making sure that I'm showing up in integrity for me, and so that I do the best work for them. So thank you for leading by example and making that pivot. And I'm so happy that it only led to amazing things for you. That's so awesome.
Thankfully.
Thankfully. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Um, So, kind of related to that point, what would you talk a lot about burnout, on your website, and in your content, on social media and stuff. So, what has that taught you about being a business owner? Like, what has that taught you? And also, like, what has it taught you about yourself? Because I feel like so many of us, of course, we've all gone through burnout in one way or another. And it's hard when uh like you were saying before, I was looking for permission to make this choice. And I realized, okay, well, I'm the one running the show here. Like I'm the boss. And that can be amazing because you're like, oh my God, like there's no one else. It's just me. And on the other hand, it's like, oh my God, there's no one else. It's just me. Shit. Like,
Yeah.
so we all get burnt out in one way or another. How do you deal with that? Like, what
Yeah.
do you do about that?
So I know you know a lot of my background, but for those
Hmm.
that are tuning into your podcast and don't know me already, I have a couple chronic illnesses. I have endometriosis, I get migraines, I have PCOS. I also have ADHD, and that was one of the main reasons why I was like, I cannot keep going the way that I'm going back when I worked in the corporate world. COVID kind of, for a lot of people with ADHD or who are neurodivergent, they realized, like, wow, I can operate a little bit differently than I'm operating my life normally in the corporate world. And this merry-go-round sensation of like, I got off the merry-go-round and I cannot get back on. That came from me experiencing a lot of ADHD burnout. I had found that I was masking a lot, and I was just kind of putting on this facade of myself of like, I can get up at 5 a.m., I can work out, I can go to work, I can come home, work out again, make dinner, plan out my outfits and everything for the next day. And it was like I was overcompensating for all of these
Hmm.
things that my brain just doesn't naturally do. And so when I got off the merry-go-round, I literally couldn't get back on because I was like,
Mm.
my brain doesn't do this naturally, and I can't
Hmm.
make it do it again. And
Hmm.
so it was a really hard thing to go through this unmasking journey as well as growing my business. But at the same time, it's been very healing. And I say this a lot, that as you grow your business, you will go through a healing journey. And I say that not to be saying that you need to be fixed, or that any part of you has to be healed, or that there's anything wrong with you, but that it needs to be accepted that that's who you are, and that's okay. You don't have to be
Mm.
anything different than what you naturally are. And so being prone to burnout, I have found that a lot of ways of mainstream business just doesn't work for me. And at first it was a very shameful experience of like, why is this not working for me when it's working for everybody else? Like, am I just dumb? Am I lazy? I hate that word, but it's true. That's what I was thinking. Um, and of course, no, I'm not any of those things. My brain is just not neurotypical. And I
Hmm.
since, healed that side of me and fully accepted that there is something very beautiful, and I can kind of use it as a superpower to have ADHD. And it doesn't always feel that way. There are some days where it can feel debilitating, but because I've built my business around my unique energy and not based on somebody else's, I can know that, okay, showing up in big groups or showing up, back to back calls all day, those things tend to burn me out. Let's not do those things again. And so I've
Hmm.
kind of had to do trial and error of like, I really had to figure out what worked well for my energy, because for a while I didn't really know. And, everyone kind of goes through their own journey, but it's really just about knowing what your natural energy is, what recharges you, what drains you, and not having any shame in letting that go, outsourcing, or giving yourself permission to just do things differently. So,
I love everything, every single thing you just said. So, for those listening, Michelle and I, we both have ADHD. She and I have sidebarred and talked about this many times over the years. And I relate to so much of what you said. And I've also found that um, there are a great many of us out here who are ADHD solopreneurs who, you know, we wear all the hats, of course, as all small business owners do, but we also do all the things. We have lots of different interests. We feel this way one day and this way another way. And you know, we're trying to it's all about vibes. It's like everything is about vibes. Um and you know, so first of all, I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD till I was 39.
okay.
And it explained my whole life, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just look back at so many things where I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, like in grade school, I struggled with reading comprehension big time. I had the biggest vocabulary, I had the best spelling, could not tell you what I just read the same page 19 times. I was zoning out. I was thinking about the Kids Incorporated replays in my brain as I'm reading, some sort of story. Of course, loved art, loved music, loved anything where I could be creative. Um, Talked a lot. Like I think when you think about ADHD, my ignorance told me like, oh, like, I'm not like a hyperactive, kid running around always bouncing their leg. Like it presents differently, and it also presents differently in women. And so many of the things can uh, mimic anxiety and,
Mhm.
different things like that. And so I've been in therapy the last couple years. Not just for that, but we talk about that in there too. But I've been learning a lot about masking, and I didn't know that was a thing. And so now when I think back about all the different types of masking in my whole life and also in my professional career before I started my business, again, so many light bulb moments, things that I realized like I was doing without realize I was doing, without knowing I was doing. Um, like in my previous job, I was extremely productive,
Mhm.
extremely. I was kind of like a one woman show with certain tasks that were my duty to do. Certain marketing tasks, design tasks. Like I was kind of like a Swiss Army knife kind of thing at a nonprofit theater where, everybody wears a million hats too. And then just realizing like how, I guess, like how much unknowingly, my neurodivergence was contributing to my hyperfocus at work. Even knowing that that was a thing, like I didn't learn about that till later. Um, so that when I then left my job to start my own business and be full time in it, I was trying to like recreate that at home, and I was struggling because I feel like I don't know. I don't know if it's that all of a sudden I was on my own. There was no one to answer to. ADHD folks tend to not really love authority figures and structure and all that stuff. So that was part of it too. And I just kind of was like, I don't know what the issue is. Like I would be, my hours were not really set. I'd be up till 4 or 5 in the morning working on stuff. I took on every job, every type of project, like I met anyone's budget, all of that craziness. And over time, as you're talking about the healing journey, which I love that you called it that, because that is totally what it is, I started realizing like, okay, just stop. Like your magic hours for brain function are like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yep.
And that's when you have the most energy, the most focus, the most creativity, all of that stuff. After that, that's time for you to get another coffee and start winding down the day. Um, and you can still do some stuff, but like don't put intense stuff after 2. Also, you are your own boss. You don't have to agree to that meeting time. You don't have to agree, to that whatever process. Like you're setting the rules. And one of the first things I did was once I realized like, oh, I do have like optimal operating times and schedules and stuff. I went into my booking program. I use Calendly for, booking meetings and stuff. And I made it so that I did like an override of the rules so that no one could book. I couldn't have more than 2 meetings booked a day,
Yeah.
max. And the meetings needed to have an hour before and an hour after padding to like I had to prepare for the meeting and then I had to decompress from the meeting, and I
Yep.
can't do back to back like what you're saying.
Mhm.
And then that carries over into okay, that's like, client meetings, whatever. But now, like, I have a group program, so I need to make sure my Zooms are also not affected by that, and my general work time, and talking to my virtual assistant, like, all of that matters. And I never realized how much, engaging with other humans is sometimes soul and energy sucking.
Yeah.
But to your point, like it made me realize the parameters in which I need to operate so that it makes sense for me and that I can make those parameters. I can make that structure and people get on board or they don't. And also finding like hacks and ways to help with my brain, like when I realized, oh, I don't have to have like a Zoom for every single client update. I can film them a video on Loom, which is a different platform, send it to them, and replace the whole meeting. And they love it because they can watch it on their time. So little things like that. I just want to encourage folks out there to find your hacks, find your shortcuts or your comfort, things that you need to do. And it's okay. It's
Yeah.
literally okay. Like you don't have to follow, to Michelle's point, someone else's energy, someone else's expectations. So I just love everything that you said. Sorry about the rant.
No, I love that you went through that journey because it's so liberating, and I go through it with all of my clients like, okay, let walk me through your day to day, like outside, inside and outside of business, like what drains you, what fills you up. And a lot of people are think that they're expected to stay on Zoom calls all day if they do one-on-one work, and it is draining. And now, since I've been a mom for a year now, which is crazy
Yay!
that it's been a year, I have I implemented this when I was pregnant, but I switched all of my Zoom calls to be Voxer voice messaging. And
I
I
love
was
Voxer. Oh my God.
Me too. Oh, it is so great. And there's also another app too. If you do like face to face, but you want to do it on your own, it's called Marco Polo, and that's pretty cool
Mm.
too. But I don't like my baby's face to be like in on the internet and stuff, so I prefer voice messaging. But anyways, I had a client recently who she is a mom and was talking to me about how she's like, just kind of going through her process of like finding what's sustainable to her. And I was like, well, have you ever considered voice messaging? And she was like, well, who does that? And I'm like, I do. Like, who cares who else does it? It's available. You can do it. You could be the first one to do it, and that's okay too. And just
hmm
kind of giving people permission to just make up the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, that brings me to my next point, which is something you and I both talk about a lot is just the idea of making your business feel like you. Being able to make your own rules or break your own rules, whichever way you want to say it. What do you notice in your coaching, like when you're working with clients? What do you notice happens like when um, people try to force fit themselves into someone else's framework, like what you were just saying with, the messaging app. By the way, for those listening, Voxer is a one-to-one messaging app. It kind of works like a walkie-talkie. There's a website version, there's an app version. It is one of the best things ever. I use it all day long with my virtual assistant, Caitlin. She lives in Germany, so we're just flying messages back and forth. But it takes off the pressure of needing to respond in the moment, the way you would like on a phone call. You could kind of like, all right, I'm gonna answer Caitlin when I'm done doing the dishes, or when I get home from the gas station or whatever. So I love, love, love it. But anyway, that was a tool that you found worked for you and that you've inspired some of your clients to try. But what do you find comes up for them in conversation when they're trying to something just not working in their business and then you kind of like realize, well, it's because you're trying to uphold, someone else's idea or structure.
So, okay, I'm sorry, can you say the same thing but differently?
Yes,
What
I
do you
can.
Okay.
Yes, I can. What does making your business feel like you mean to you? Let's just start with that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, you have to first, it takes a lot of radical self-acceptance, because if you are not getting to the acceptance stage, and I talk about it like it's grief, because
Mm,
it really is. There are, I think, 7 stages of grief. I'm not a grief expert, but at first there's bargaining and denial. You want it to work, you want it to feel this way, and it's not working this way, and eventually it leads to acceptance. You have to go through all of those stages, but eventually you're going to accept that, okay, this is what it is. I cannot control this. It is in my nature to be this way. So a lot of the times what I find is that it's actually other people's shoulds and other people's expectations who are they're projecting those things onto the people who come to me and work with me. And I find that unfortunately a lot of other coaches in the industry unintentionally traumatize people. So
Hmm.
they'll put these projections on people like it's no big deal, like, oh yeah, just do it this way. And they don't mean to necessarily talk about it as if it's so black and white, but the way that people take it is there's no in between. It is this way or it's that way. It's group programs or it's one on one, for example.
Hmm.
And then they come to me and it's like they need to go through this whole stage of like discovering themselves again and retrusting themselves because for so long they were outsourcing their intuition to somebody else to say like, yeah, do it this way, or like, yeah, I trust this person. And when you do that for so long and you trust somebody else's voice for so long, you start to distrust your own for so long that you don't even remember what your own voice sounds like. And so it's kind of
Hmm.
about like rediscovering yourself and, liberating that person that really is inside of you and tends to be our inner child or connected to our inner child because, you're born this way. And little by little, as we grow up in the world, we're expected to act a certain way, or we think that we have to be a certain way, or we come across as, being like this. And we forget that we started out, in this one spot. So it's kind of about like, yeah, connecting with your inner child and just radical self acceptance.
I love that. And this comes up a lot in conversations with other business owners. Um, the idea of the inner child that we have in us. And I've shared how at my desk here, I keep a picture of myself when I was like 3 or 4,
Oh,
um, on my desk because like she's my creative director. And I want to take care of her. Like, I want to give her a good life. I want to make sure her voice is heard. Like, when I was a kid, I loved drawing and art and music and fun stuff like that. I loved colorful stuff, as you can see, still having that going. Um, and yeah, I just think I loved to create. I also think I loved to be in charge. So there's that. Um, and I think it's so important that when you really think about it, who we were is who we are. We just kind of forgot. And so when you have clients who are coming to you, they're ready to work with you, how do you support your clients in figuring out like their way of doing business? Because even though you're their coach, you're still trying to help them find the way that works for them, not necessarily your way or the highway.
mhm. So it requires a lot of listening and reflecting back to them to make sure, like, okay, this is what I'm gathering from you, or it sounds like you're saying this, because sometimes, what I'm taking from it is not what they really mean.
Yeah.
But I like to think of myself as like a mirror. So
Mm.
I want to make sure that I'm not putting on any kind of biases towards people of like, this is what I like to do, or this is how I think that you should do it. But I have a framework that I use. And the first stage is, I call it freedom. So it's all about like liberating yourself from all of like the shoulds and the expectations. And there's a lot of questions that I ask and a lot of reflection. And I also ask my clients that they meditate. And I like to preface that meditation can mean whatever it means to you. It doesn't have
Hmm.
to be this huge like performance of an art. It doesn't have to be where you completely clear your mind and you're just the Zen person. It's just like really tuning into your thoughts and watching them and listening to them as they go by. Like, if you're having the same thought over and over and over again, you're having that thought for a reason. It's not just for
Mm.
fun. It's trying to tell you something. So what is it telling you? And sometimes it does take trial and error. Like, okay, so I tried out Voxer and I really like this aspect of it, but I really don't like this aspect of it. And it's kind of like Tetrising. And so that would be the second stage is, kind of trying to align all the different, energy and your lifestyle. Are you a mom? Do you have chronic illness? Like, what specifically do you feel like isn't working and what is working? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? And it's
Hmm.
kind of, connecting back to specifically to them and their inner child, and finding out what works for them. And again, it is a lot of trial and error. And then the third step is just integration and acceptance, and just kind of making everything more efficient, in not in a robotic way, but in a soulful way of like, what it what feels the most full of integrity for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that because it's like it feels like a very custom but very secure container, safe space,
Yeah.
for um for there's a lot of permission for them to do things um in a way that works best for them. Like when you're talking about the meditation piece, like it can mean whatever you want. It can be whatever you want, but the important thing is the intention of doing it, like the prioritizing of I'm going to go through this process, however that means for me.
Mhm.
And I would imagine that that leads to lots of obviously vulnerability and openness with your clients, but trust, and then they start to trust themselves more too, I would think, and really want um, to bring that into the work that they do in their business and the work that they do with their clients. So I see how it can be like very reciprocal.
Yeah.
Um mhm.
So I always like to encourage, like, I feel like a lot of the typical coaches that you think of, they get a bad rep because they like to have everybody trust them. They are the experts. They know all. They are the most experienced. And what I like to say is that you are the expert. You know you best. You know your business best. And I
Mhm.
will help you get there, but I want you to trust yourself way more than you trust me. And
Mm.
it's all about growing that self-trust for me. And I also really, I think we've talked about this book, but it's sitting right here because I'm going through it right now. But The
Mhm.
Artist's Way,
Mm.
it
Mhm.
is my favorite tool as a human, as a creative person, as a coach. I think everybody, even if they don't consider themselves a creative, should go through this book because it's very liberating, and it talks about like how to deal with your inner critic, and giving yourself permission to do things your way. And it talks about, you know kind of the same aspect of like, what does meditation mean for you. They talk about what does, God and spirituality mean to you. It doesn't have to be this Christian idea of God. It could mean universe, it could mean yourself, it could mean, this higher power that you don't know. And it's just a very, I don't know, I love it so much, so highly
That's Ju
recommend.
that's Julia Cameron, right?
Yes.
Julia Cameron. Yeah, that book has come up a lot on this podcast too. And I actually just added it to my Spotify queue right before our talk, so that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because I forget who brought it up last. I can't remember, but it's come up a couple times, and I do much better with listening to books
Okay.
than reading. Like I can't.
Yeah.
But I know about the concept of morning pages and artist dates, and I love that aspect. And I actually that's why I added it to my Spotify queue to listen to the audiobook because I want to. Like I love the idea of taking yourself on an artist date where I'm assuming that can mean whatever you want it to mean as
Yeah.
well. And something that I've been wanting to do has been to watch more art and creativity documentaries. I have
Okay.
like a whole freaking archive saved on Netflix and all the different streaming apps and stuff of just like, photographers and dance and writers and filmmakers and all that stuff. Like that's how I enjoy that. And then of course like going to concerts, going to museums, like going to one of my clients has a ceramics studio, so like going down there and like, painting, and I just love that. And I think keeping your brain and hands involved in creativity beyond just running your business and working with clients is so important for inspiration.
Yeah.
Um, I would be nothing without my playlists and my coloring books and, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for the reminder.
I use entrepreneur archetypes. So there
Mm,
are four main types, and this is what my quiz is based off of, or one of the pieces, I should say. So the four aspects the four different archetypes of the entrepreneur archetypes are based off of your core motivator. So, like, why you do the things that you do, what motivates you to grow your business, and why you want to do the work that you do. So, for me as a coach, which is one of the archetypes, I like to help people. I like to serve. I just want to love on people. And I think that just kind of shows up in like the way that I want to do my business coaching. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's also the teacher archetype, which is um, they have just such a love for learning and teaching. It's not necessarily just teaching, but they have a love of knowledge. So sharing your teaching, sharing um, different, you know, sharing your knowledge or your wealth of knowledge, but also just soaking up all of the learning that you can. So being being more of a student, I guess, than a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the strategist, which is kind of like the sciencey data analyst side of business. You like to take things apart and really understand like why things work the way that they do. And um, then there is, oh, duh, the creator. I was like, what am I missing? The creator. So the creator's core motivator is to create and self-expression, and that's why you do what you want to do, because you want your art to be seen, or you just feel like you have this thing that you have to birth out to the world. And so I kind of take that, and then also with a little watered down version of energy styles of introversion versus extroverts. Do people drain you, or do they light you up? Um, because
Mm-hmm.
that's a big thing in business is work. Do you want to work one on one, or do you want to work more to a larger scale? And
Mm-hmm.
also, typically, how do you show up in your life outside of business? Are you the friend that is usually like kind of the mom? Are you the wild card where, you're kind of not all over the place in a bad way, but just,
Mm-hmm.
people never know what to expect from you. And kind of combining all of those things and what you crave out of your business. So for me as a coach, I crave intimacy and depth. I like to work one on one with people. Talking with big groups really drains me. And I tend to be the therapist of the group. I just really want to love on people and make sure that they know how special they are. And yeah, so
Mm.
I love working with people in that aspect.
I um I have a link to your quiz in the show notes of this episode, so everyone needs to go there and grab this. Because and I'm gonna take it too because I'm so curious I think I know what I'll get, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna take the quiz and see because I was relating to several things that you said. Definitely the therapist thing. Holy crap. That
Yeah.
always is a thing when I'm talking with clients, when I'm talking with my friends, yeah. But yeah, it's so interesting to see what that would lay out. So definitely everyone needs to go and grab that link. So talking a bit about like the specifics of some of the struggles that your clients do have, like when they come to you and they're ready to work with you, would you say like are they looking primarily for help with how they show up in their business? Is it more what they offer? Is it more like the marketing and messaging? Like what are some of the struggles that you hear, I guess, a lot? What are some of the common things that come up?
So, for the most part, the people that come to me struggle the most with their offer container and deliverables. Deliverables has been such a hot topic lately because people, again, it's this thing that holds so much shame. Like if you do one thing, people people expect you, in air quotes, to do this thing forever. So if you say that, this program comes with this uh, coaching checklist, and people love this checklist and you can't stand it and it just doesn't feel right anymore, people have this weird, and I say this with love, but they have this weird attachment to like letting deliverables go. And
Hmm.
it's it's really silly when you take a step back and think about it, because it's like it's a checklist. but it's really not the checklist. It's always, I never relate to people who are like, it's not that deep. It is always that deep for me. It's deeper than deep for me. It goes
Hmm.
back to, people really are fearful of disappointing people. They're afraid of um, disappointing themselves, and they have so much shame in just letting that one thing go and saying, this is what I want to do and doing it. So
Hmm.
lately it's been a lot of getting rid of deliverables that just don't align with what they want to do anymore.
Hmm. So interesting. And it's making me feel a certain type of way, I have to admit, because not in a bad way, but just in a ooh, that's there's something there for me to explore because uh I have so many I have a bunch of lead magnets, number one. Um, some of them have been great, some of them have done shit. Why am I still offering those? Is it because I just never promote them so people don't know that they're there and so obviously they're not getting signups? Or is it because they suck? I don't know. Um, and so that's one thing. The other thing is like in entrepreneurship, right? It's feast or famine. The last couple years have been absolutely cocoa bananas. Like I don't even know what's happening. And so with that, you know, scarcity mindset, you're like, okay, what can I slap together really quick? What can I offer really quick? I can do this. This will be easy. This will be really helpful for people. I can put a price tag on it. I feel like it's valuable. Cool. And then you throw it out there and maybe you get a couple bites, maybe it's crickets, whatever. Then you have a stockpile of those things that you're like, I haven't talked about that in 18 months. Oh, people didn't even know I had that, you know. And then you go into, well, these are the, signature kind of services that I launched with when I started my business 8 years ago. Do those still feel right? Maybe some of them do, maybe some of them don't. Maybe I need to restructure, reprice, whatever. That's kind of where my brain is at this current juncture. So I
I
appreciate that
love
you
that.
that you talked about that because I have it's just it's like it's one of those things where I have all these offers and things, whether they're services or digital products or freebies or courses. And then some of them people are well aware about. Some of them people have no clue I even have because they're not even on my website. Maybe they're buried in an email or my link tree somewhere or something, And it's like, I struggle with like, do I build a digital storefront, put everything on there? Do I totally go radically to the other end and only do like one freebie, two services, one course? Like I don't have my answer yet. Um, but I relate to the struggle. I relate to the what feels in alignment to me. What are the things that I am happy and excited and proud to offer? And what things can I cut and let go of, to your point, that no longer align or that never aligned, but I felt like I had to friggin' rush and put out there, And I
Yeah.
feel like so many people must go through that exact same thing.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because everybody goes through cycles. It's like a I feel very like mystical when I say this. The universe has like cycles that everyone goes through at the same time. So like right now it's deliverables and I feel like everybody's going through it at the same time. And I don't know if it's because like, the big creators have ads going about something. I don't know. Or if it's just like something mystical happening in the universe where we're just all in sync or like something with the,
Hmm.
I don't know, but
Hmm.
it all kind of happens at once. So it kind of makes my job a little bit easier because I'm having these conversations with people that are very similar to each other.
Hmm.
And I can also be like, you're not alone. Like I just talked to somebody who said this. And that's always nice, when I don't have this community that, I don't have like a Facebook group or anything like that, a group, a group coaching program to kind of say like, you're not alone. Like I went through it. This person went through it. This person decided this. And, um,
Hmm.
at the beginning when I had flipped my business model after I had pivoted, I was going through it. And at first I felt that imposter syndrome of like, how can I help people when I'm literally going through this? And now it's been so long since I was in that place that I feel like, okay, even if I'm only 2 steps ahead of people, I'm still a couple of steps ahead of people where I feel far enough removed where I can talk about this and not like, feel like I don't know what's going on. But yeah,
Yep,
you are
yep.
not alone. We all go through it. And um, yeah.
I like what you said about I'm removed enough from it now where I can talk about it. Because that's something that's come up for me and some of my students over the years too, where it's like, of course, imposter syndrome, right? Like we could talk about that all day. But like who am I to even share, advice on this topic or, talk about, um, should and shouldn'ts with this when I'm still going through that thing and I don't have it figured out. Or I totally like fucked up that whatever. And, now people want to learn it from me. Like I feel like a fraud, but all I can do is share about my experience and share about like what you were saying earlier, like I don't recommend this, but this is how I did.
Yeah.
Like, just being real. I think people appreciate certainly knowing they're not alone and hearing other perspectives and just knowing like, okay, like this happened, she got through the other side of it, or she's still in it, but she's sharing how to navigate that. And I think for me, it's been a mix. Sometimes I share after I'm removed from it, like you said, and sometimes I share when I'm still like in it, like what I was just saying
Yeah.
about, my offers and my different things. Um, but yeah, I think no matter how you do it, the overall is people just enjoy when the person that they are hiring shares and is real with them, whether it's now or later.
Yeah.
And I think that that can only help other business owners too, with how they are marketing themselves, talking about themselves, their business, because I talk a lot about like the know, like, and trust factor. Like people hire and work with people that they know and they like and they trust. So how can you bring more of your self and your soul and your authenticity into your business, which I know is your whole sweet spot and everything that you teach and guide everybody through. Um, and I also know too that there is always going to be that feeling of, ooh, I'm not following the rules. Like, if I don't follow those rules, I'm not going to succeed. Um, and what would you say to someone who is just like maybe they're laying in bed listening to this episode and they're feeling like, I, I'm not strong enough to follow my own path. I don't know what my path is. I need someone else to give me the path or the plan or the rule. Like, how do you help them be more, how do you help them trust themselves more?
Yeah. So it's funny when you said the know, like, and trust factor, you sparked something inside of me. And I right now have this signature series that I'm backlogging, filming, and putting out on Reels. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the episodes that I wanted to film is talking about the know, like, and trust factor. So this is perfect because
Mm.
I think in mainstream business, we talk about, gain people's trust by being the expert. And I think what we've taken from that like black and white mentality is that that means you have to know everything. And
Mm.
that's not true. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to know enough. And you have to know that it is also okay to not have the answers. And that makes you an expert. And also, you are the expert of yourself. And I cannot say that enough. There will never be somebody who knows you better than you know yourself. And maybe you don't know yourself yet, but you will. And so just
Mm-hmm.
really diving deep into your inner thoughts of, what does my mind keep replaying to me? What does my heart really want to do? And why, what, how do I say this? What has made me get to the point where I feel like I can't trust myself? Is there a voice out there that Maybe it's always somebody very silly, like this person back from high school who said this one thing to me, like who's made me second guess myself for the last 30 years, whatever it is. And,
Hmm.
where is this voice coming from? What are they saying? And is there any truth to that? Usually not. But
Hmm.
usually we can kind of dig deep and really understand where those thoughts are coming from. And not that I'm a therapist, coaching is not therapy. And please
Hmm.
seek therapy. I am a huge proponent of seeking all of the types of therapy. But yeah, just really listening to yourself and putting on your scientist hat and just
Mm.
observing and not judging, and eventually you will trust yourself. You just have to do a little bit at a time, baby steps. And baby steps are not bad, they are awesome. They take
Hmm.
you where you want to go, just slowly and with intention.
It's so true. And that's something that's taken me a couple years to learn because as I was talking about the ADHD, the hyperfocus, the putting my worth into how productive I am in a day, all of that crap, um, it took me a long time to realize that uh, slowly is the fastest way to get to somewhere. Like, by being intentional about breaking it down into small steps, and realizing that small steps add up. And all of a sudden, you're into the next phase, or you've completed the thing, or whatever. Something about it was like before I had the realization, something was stopping me from even looking into that idea or giving that a try because I could not get over in my head of like, I don't have time to break this into smaller chunks. I just need to do the whole mountain right now. And I would never do the whole mountain. So like, what are you doing? And being able to just like ChatGPT has been one way that has helped me. It has been amazing for my business, for my brain, for my life. But it's never going to replace a person. It's never going to replace me. But I use it as a tool. I use it as a helper. And that has been one of the concrete, tangible ways that I have been able to, for lack of a better term, plop the mountain into the chat, the whole brain dump, and maybe giving it some parameters of timelines or certain, ingredients, whatever, and letting it then produce kind of a small steps timeline or calendar that actually helps me have benchmarks and stuff to get stuff done. It's been amazing
I
for
love
that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But yeah, it was a struggle for me to give it a chance, I guess. Like, oh, that's never gonna work for me. That's too slow, that's too time consuming. I can't. Um, but I couldn't anyway, so why not try something else? Um, so I love that. And I think, a lot of folks who are probably or who are listening are probably, they're also juggling a million things right now. And not just in business, but in life. Maybe some of them have kids, maybe some of them are not full time yet. Like I definitely have plenty of clients and students and stuff who they haven't opened their business yet, or they have, but it's their side hustle.
Yeah.
Um, and how can they um is there an energy shift or maybe a reframing moment that you could share that would help them know that it's okay? They're eventually going to do what they're meant to do, and to not let the overwhelm and fear make them feel like it's not worth trying.
Yeah. So I love that you brought up people who are either just starting or trying to grow a side hustle, because I have a freebie that I don't put out there anymore.
Mm.
If you want it, you can have it. But it is all about what I would do if I were starting my business over from scratch. And
Mm.
I wouldn't have just quit my job and started my business. Not that I regret it, but if I was just a normal person who wanted to start my own business, I would start it as a side hustle, and I would eventually start scaling back in the work that I do as an employee. So whether that means taking on less hours, whether it means getting a job that is still full time, but just less mentally taxing. Maybe it's a remote job, or maybe it's a factory job, or something that, if you're a creative and you find that having a creative side hustle and having a full time creative job is too much, it's too draining, then switch to a factory job and your creative side hustle so that you're still working towards growing your business, but you're not, burning the candle at both ends, or whatever that saying is.
Mm-hmm.
Just giving yourself permission to do it slowly and with intention. Slow and steady is, all of these ads talk about how like you should just quit your job and do all of this stuff because that's like the sexy thing to do, when really what should be marketed as the sexy thing to do is to do things slow and with intention. Because when we do things fast or out of urgency, we usually do things unaligned because we're trying to just pull things together really fast, whatever can make the most money the fastest, and that's usually not the way that will work best with our energy. So just giving yourself permission to do that. And also, what was your question again? Am I answering your question?
You are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just about, like making them feel like they can still be successful. They should
Oh,
still give it a shot. And,
yeah.
I guess the overall feeling of like fear from taking the next step, or fear from starting even.
Yeah. So a lot of people are afraid to take that next step because they're afraid of failing. And I would like to reframe it and ask you, okay, well, what happens if you never try? What would you
Mm.
regret more, trying and failing, or never trying and never knowing? And that's kind of for you to sit with.
Mm-hmm. That's what we call a mic drop moment. Uh, because it's true. It's true. We get so in our heads of, it's not even worth it. It's never gonna happen. It's gonna fail. It's gonna suck. That's gonna take too long. Blah 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 blah. Um, and I relate to it in a big way for, I mean, lots of different reasons, but something you were talking about earlier with uh like when we were talking about following someone else's structure, someone else's energy, someone else's expectations. I took a course that taught me how to make a course. And in that course, which was great, um, it wasn't ideal for my brain, even though the content was great, the teaching was great. It's a lifelong asset that I have to fall back on. I needed to realize that I couldn't meet every step and every suggestion in it because it just was not working for my brain. And what I found, um, before I had made my course, there were folks in the community who had shared how they just did it their way. They took what was useful and left the rest, and they found their own path, and they built this thing and they're successful, and now they're launching it for the 10th time and all this stuff. And I couldn't understand how they were able to do that, because the ADHD side of me is like, what are the rules? What's the path? What's the blueprint? I have this big fat manual that I'm supposed to follow. If I don't follow every single step, it's not going to work the right way, or something's going to break, or I'm not going to get the same result. And long story short, um, it took me a couple years, but I finally did launch my course, and I did some of it by the book and I did some of it my style. But it took me a long time to even do that, and to then understand and see and agree with those other folks that it can be done in your way. Like I had to go through it to trust it, or like, to see that like it's okay. Like I can kind of like cut corners, break rules, like do things, in the way that works best for me and my brain. Um, and I just want to acknowledge that it was hard for me to accept that possibility or advice in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's what I've heard a bunch from like my email subscribers, or, some of the folks in my Facebook group who are just like, that's not going to work for me. I just don't see, like, it's impossible. You don't know my story. That could never happen. I don't really buy that kind of, thing. And I don't really think there's a, um, exact, uh, answer or response to that. I'm just sharing that I felt the same way. And I came out the other side and saw that there's more than one way to do things and still get the result, that you're kind of working for. And I think as business owners, like that's all we could ever want. Like it's cool to get advice from people and take what's useful and leave the rest. But at the end of the day, like you were saying earlier, all our businesses are so different. We are also different. Our products, our ideal clients are also different. There's never going to be one, standard way to do things.
Mhm. Yeah. And I
Um,
think that's a huge thing with having ADHD is we tend to have a lot of black and white mentality of things. It's just in our nature. I think it's how we process things, but most of us live in the gray. So
hmm
I like to say that everything is a suggestion. Take
mm,
take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And I I like to think that everybody's like sustainable or the right business structure, strategy, flow for them is a hybrid model of a little bit of a bunch of different pieces that really matter. Nobody follows the blueprint of, I don't know if you want me to shout people out, but like,
it's
Amy
okay.
Porterfield and, her digital course. She's great at digital courses and she teaches you how to start a digital course from A to Z. And that works for her. And it may work for a lot of her students, but it doesn't work for everybody. But what can you take from that? And Jerisha Hawk is great. This is funny, she used to do a lot of um, group coaching program promise strategy mentality, and now she has divested from that and is now doing one-on-one, kind of like me, how she flipped her business model because she was like wait, which is really fun.
hmm
She used to talk about that, but taking a bite from her and Jenna Kutcher and her Instagram, Pinterest, podcast, launch, rinse, repeat kind of programs.
hmm
What of those things resonate with you and what doesn't? And not having any shame behind, what does and doesn't resonate with you.
hmm Yep. So agree. Um, so wrapping up here, I want to remind folks that you can grab Michelle's free quiz in the show notes, her business blueprint quiz, which I can't wait to take after this episode. And you can find her on Instagram at the Michelle Sheerin. I'm going to put that in the notes too. Um, and final thoughts. What do you want other sensitive, soul-led business owners to know when they're thinking about the or I guess talk to yourself when you first started, a couple years ago, like when you said, these are some things I I wouldn't have done, or I wouldn't do a second time. I feel like, hold on, I'm gonna cut here because that question does not make any fucking sense. Hold on.
I thought it did. I was like, oh, I have an
I
answer.
okay, good. I do want to ask what do you want other sensitive soul-led business owners to know? So I'm just gonna go into that. Okay, hold on. So final thoughts. I would love for you to ask or to answer. What do you want other sensitive soul-led business owners to know? Whether that's about themselves or their business. What's just a nice little send-off that we could give them today?
Yeah. So if you want to do things the easy way, if you don't want to, I know that I tend to always make myself learn the hard way because that's just how I do things. But if you want to do things the easy way, listen to what your heart is telling you because it is 100% right.
Mm,
Not anybody else, but what do you feel like is calling you? It is going to make you feel like you are absolutely insane. And that means that you should absolutely do it.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you, my friend. This was such a great talk, full of so many little helpful tips. And obviously, we want everyone to head to michellesheerin.com and check out her awesome coaching packages, and see how you can work with her. But thank you so much for being here today. This was
Thanks
great
for
to see you
having me.
and catch up.
Yeah, I
And
talked to you
I
for
will,
hours.
I know the whole time I'm like, I'm just gonna tell her this. I'm just gonna tell her that. I just feel very comfortable chatting with you. Yeah, seriously. I have it'll be a second episode, but I have so much work to do on like cleaning up my offers, my website, and just
Okay, well,
like
slide in my
that.
DMs and we can chat. Like,
I will. I will.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I go back and forth with it. I really do. I'm like kind of all over the place. But yeah, I am gonna slide into your DMs.
Okay,
We're gonna hammer out something.
good.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much for being here. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.